it's lovely to have everyone from these different disciplines, from these different backgrounds here around one table. So we've got a varied program for you, but before we get into the kind of, bit nuts and bolts about the project, I just wanted to go through some basic housekeeping stuff. It's about 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock. We'll start with coffee to give people a chance to arrive from about 9:30. Then there'll be a break for lunch at about 12:30 till 1:30 each day. A little bit of tea, coffee, around about 3-ish, and then we'll finish the program at 4. I know some people from the communities are a bit worried about transport to get back to their communities, but don't worry, we'll take care of that certainly today. I'll drive the people back from Umbunyani. I think some of the people from the upper catchments have got their own transport, and we'll make a plan for those that haven't. So everyone's taken care of in terms of transport today. And if you need to talk to me about reimbursement for your transport to arrive this morning, you can see me at lunchtime. Okay. Those who are staying in accommodation here or the courtyard should have got into their rooms by now. You guys are back, yeah, great. So any issues with that, see Philip, or you can chat to me as well. Toilets, in case anyone needs them. You probably already worked out where they are, but I think there's 4 toilets just around the corner here. So whenever you need those, they're just there. So you've noticed someone with a video camera. We've already started with that, but yeah, just on me so far. So our university has all these very strict protocols about, use of images and So what we'll need you to do is to fill out an informed consent form. We give you something called, very trendily entitled, the participant information sheet, which tells you all about what you're entitled to do and what the project's trying to do, etc. So we'll give out these after this. And then you need to tick a series of boxes on this informed consent form, okay? So there's one for everyone, hopefully, and that gives us clearance to be able to film, to take photographs, and to be able to use images in any reports that come out about this, if that's okay. So we need your consent to be able to do that, if that's okay. So it's a little bit kind of clunky and time consuming, particularly when you do this in focus groups in the villages, but we need this for the university's sake, basically. Okay, anything else? Yes, so we did have plastic bottles on tables, and then Heidi very sensibly said, this is a bit of an environmental disaster. Why don't we move to water outside and separate glasses? So everyone can get one of these. So hold on to this during the day, refill when you need to. So saves the environment. Name badges. Has everyone got a name badge on? Great. And I think there's an inventory of people who was, to put your name on and what your affiliation is. It would be great for us to capture that because it's been a bit of a moving feast over the last few days. More people have added, other people have disappeared, and I think there's still maybe 3 or 4 people to arrive. So hopefully we've got enough seats. It won't stay like this for the whole session. We've got quite a varied program for you. Mainly presentations and introductions this morning, but by the afternoon we'll move into kind of small table work between little groups. So yeah. Why should I introduce myself, by the way? That's a little thing at the top saying don't forget to introduce yourself. So I'm James Bennett from Coventry University in the UK. So I'm the PI for the project with, this is a shortened title, but basically it's about trade-offs in community systems. I'll talk more about the context of this a bit later on. Okay, so this is a project that's funded through the British, it's one of the funding councils in the UK, and it's through a particular stream of funding called the Global Challenges Research Fund. So this research council historically is very kind of biotech focused, engineering more production into crops. But the UK government has actually done something very sensible for once and forced these research councils to have a much broader vision around kind of development and broader worldwide issues. So the Global Challenges Research Fund kind of brings science together with social science and development. So for the first time, really, it's far more collaborative. It's got a much broader reach. So this project is funded through that. So it's 2 days, and the community members, I don't know whether you're aware of it, but I also want you here on Friday. So it's 3 days for the community guys, if you can manage it, but we'll see how that goes on Friday, okay? But for the rest of the people, it's a kind of 2-day commitment, 10 till 4, if that's okay. We'll look after you, don't worry. Okay, so have I missed anything?
No.
Have I got everything?
Are there any questions so far?
Yes,
Any
please do ask any questions.
Just some apologies for the events, really.
Yeah. Okay.
So Chief Kwabi is on his way, as you know, from
Yeah.
Water. And did we send you from the municipality, said to go to the doctor, and she's still waiting.
No problem.
The doctor, so she'll
Yeah.
know she's...
If people drift in, that's no problem. We just need to remember to get them to sign this to agree to have the review. In fact, I should bring my camera as well. Okay, so are we okay to proceed with the forms? It's a little bit time consuming, but it's best to get it out of the way now before we forget about that. Okay, so I'll pass these around. So,
And maybe while James distributes the forms, my name is Stephanie. I will introduce myself later, but we work together at Coventry University in this project. Just a general question to you all. Are you fine with photos being taken and video filming? Or is anybody not happy with it?
I suppose we'll find out on these forms.
The thing is, what I want to add, if we publish anything, we would ask your permission.
Yeah.
So if we do a video, we might do a short video of the workshop, which is nice to share with the world out there, to show what we're doing here, you know, because there are many initiatives in different parts of the world, and it's a great thing of technology that we can share these things and show people what's happening here. So if we produce a video like that, we would ask your permission first before we publish it. So not that you think we will use things just the way we want. So there will be communication, we have your names, we will have your contact details. So just to ensure you, we will not misuse the images and the information that you give us. But it's also all written on the form. So if anybody has any concerns, let us know.
And from the last time we did these forms, we've already got this kind of wonderful pastiche of our time in the communities back in June. And also with Nikki up towards some of the other catchment stuff we can charge on as well. So, yeah. So this is the type of thing we'll use them for, nothing else. Right, so if everyone's got one of those information sheets, I'll give you the informed consent. So please have a read through the first document we were given, and then your signing thing is on the next. It's actually probably less unwieldy in this environment. When you're trying to do this at the start of a focus group, very difficult. But we have to do it, unfortunately. Do you want to? Yeah, you may as well.
Can I say something about the video?
Please do.
Yeah, I am not sure if it's going to make us comfortable to also crack some jokes.
No. I've already started cracking jokes.
I was going to call him.
We have to be a constrained environment now. But I would want to ask about the president there in the UK and the new president.
No, don't you worry about that.
The legal and parliament, you see now.
Oh, the Prime Minister.
Is it just payment course?
I'm being recorded now, so
No, you can't. But honestly, you say whatever you want. There's been enough. Mostly we can go down to Parliament. Anyway, I've come 10,000 kilometers to try and get away from them.
Yeah, you will see, you will forget about the camera after some time. So yeah, and we will not publish any sensitive information. So.
Listen, Stephanie's got more experience of this. She held a stakeholder workshop in Uganda with all sorts of different actors in East Africa. And after a while, people would forget there's a camera even then.
Yeah, you will see.
Yeah.
You get used to it. But thanks for that comment. So
Yeah.
we will be very careful what we put in if we produce a video. So we will focus on the workshop and feel free to say what you want to say. That's the key thing for us.
my worry was basically on South Africa getting more funds. like this workshop and what you are doing now.
No, these things help you get more funds.
But if we say something, then that will be looked against us.
No, because we guarantee your anonymity. Anything we will edit it in a way that
Yeah.
if there's any kind of jocular stuff that's in there and you think, well, maybe we'll cut that bit out.
Message is clear. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that comment. Heidi, you had a comment as well?
No, just the participant number in the top left corner, there's a box saying, I've written down my participant number, but there's.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we can do that later.
Yeah, we'll just assign you a number.
We'll
Don't worry.
say yes.
Yeah.
Just say yes.
Yeah, that's my fault. I should have put the numbers on before I gave them out, but that's not worried about that.
Yeah, we can add them later so we can remove names, the name, so it would just be a number. So it would be anonymous. That's the purpose of it. Any other questions, please let us know.
Or I can just come round and put the numbers on them now. Might be easier. Let me just write the numbers on now. I'll just come round. And then you can all know your numbers. People are still reading the form anyway. Thanks.
Okay, do I film every minute of this, or can I?
You could just do it in whatever seems to be appropriate.
Yeah,
Eight,
okay.
thanks. So yeah, so he's testament to the fact he knows I've been here for this long, but I was a much younger guy than him. Okay, so yeah, so my PhD was basically around communal arable land systems and smallholder livestock production. So ever since then, I've kept an interest in those systems, and I've come back probably almost every year since on various projects, big and small. And it got me to thinking, how do we? As I visited, I met kind of a multiplicity of different people from different backgrounds. So NGOs, academics I was working with, governmental actors, and it got me to think, how do we bring people together to try and build a consensus around rangelands? And we hit upon this idea of trade-offs as the kind of mechanism to try and link all of these kind of potentially disparate viewpoints about what people want to get from their interest in rangelands. Obviously there's the community who've got a vested interest because they live there, but there's all these external actors as well who have an interest in some way in how rangelands are used and managed. So this workshop and this project is focused very much on how we bring you all together around a shared set of objectives and eventually maybe some kind of land use scenarios that come out of this. Okay? So it's 2 days, today and tomorrow, or maybe a third day for the community guys. How is this going to work? Yes. So, I know many of you are already very aware of this, but I thought just one slide of context about why communal rangelands are important, not just in South Africa, but all throughout Africa as well. So in terms of the communities, they're a vital source of livelihood in terms of livestock production, provision of natural resources, but there's a bigger picture to this as well, which is why the kind of NGOs, the governmental actors have been invited as well. So they provide a lot of critical ecosystem services at a kind of broader scale in terms of water provision, biodiversity. Don't know whether there's anyone representing biodiversity here today. I was hoping there would be. Yeah. Carbon sequestration as well. And many of these things potentially work in opposition to one another. So the balance, for example, between water and carbon. So this is what we need to try and work through within this workshop. And it's also kind of well established now that these systems are under threat. So there's degradation occurring, their ability to provide for people and these ecosystem services is being compromised by localized overgrazing and particularly invasion of alien plants in this area, amongst other things. So to try and resolve these issues in a kind of joined up way, which allows us to kind of engage in sustainable rangeland management, requires us to kind of balance different options for land use, different priorities in terms of the environment, people in the environment. So these trade-offs that we talk about at several different levels. So between environmental outcomes, I've mentioned water and carbon is an obvious one, but also between people and the environment. So in terms of biodiversity, for example, somebody might argue that let's get rid of all the wattle, but we know from interacting with the communities that people still want to retain some of that wattle. It's useful to them on a livelihood basis. And lots of great research is being published about how people are making use of alien invasives. So maybe getting rid of all of them isn't the right option. But also, within communities, we talk to different groups of people, for example, men and women, and they conceptualize rangelands in very different ways. So men, usually livestock, water, but women have quite a different take, and we're going to come on to some of that a bit later on. So it's important, I think, to also kind of tease out these differences within groups in communities as well. So it's ambitious, but we're going to try and do all of that in the next couple of days. So I've mentioned the project very briefly already. So it's a BBSRC, that's the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council in the UK, through this really nice new initiative by the Department for Environmental Development in the UK. They poured about £2 billion into this. So there's lots and lots of projects that are coming out of this.
Not into our project.
No. I wish we'd be, this would be a very long project. So it's part of this Agri-Systems call, and the project officially started 1st of April. We made a little initial visit in June, so many of you have already met us to go to some of the villages that CSA have already worked in. I've got the overall aim of the project there, which is, you can read yourself. It's actually more than that, it's about alternative land use options as well. The main partners, and I think at this point maybe people can stand up who are part of the kind of whole partnership and just say a very brief sentence about what their involvement is. So from Coventry, there's myself, James Bennett, Stephanie.
Yeah, this is me, Stephanie, Malweni, Munjani. It's very nice to be here again. We were here in June. And we see familiar faces.
Yeah.
So we traveled, we are at Coventry in England, but I'm also in Germany. I'm a German national. So my home is Munich, south of Germany. And James and I have been working together on this. My background is a nutritionist, a nutrition scientist initially, but always with a strong link to the social sciences, and then moving more into agriculture, sustainable livelihoods. So I'm quite diverse. I'm not a specialist, but I'm quite diverse, and that's great to be part of this project also, which is not my core knowledge that I have. And I want to say one thing: we are here to learn from you and to learn from your experiences, because you're the experts in these issues, and that's what we're here for. So I'm very happy to be here and to work with all of you.
And you've done lots of work in South Africa before.
Yes, maybe I should mention, I've been in South Africa more than 20 years. I started coming out in 1996 first, and then I lived here from 97 to 2000. I was in the Northwest Province. I worked with in different rural areas, and later I worked a lot with farm workers. Also in the Western Cape, I worked with farm workers, so that was a focus I had. Later I worked with emerging farmers, and now we're trying to move more into other levels also to influence policy. The policy level is very important to press for change. So yes, South Africa is very familiar to me. It feels like a second home. So welcome to all of you, very happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. So the other partner in the UK is called Rothamsted Research. They're the techie people. They're going to do all this modelling we're going to try and get done, as well as some of the partners here as well. So there's going to be lots of notes compared with it. Unfortunately, Lian Hai Wu, who's at Rothamsted, can't be with us for this particular visit, but he'll arrive at some point in March, I think, for our next visit. And then the other partner is Conservation South Africa, represented by Heidi Hawkins.
Morning, everyone. Nice to be here as well. I am usually in the Cape Town office, and my background is I'm a plant scientist. So while Stephanie and James are going to be focusing on, the idea is to put all of our ideas together. But while there's going to be a focus from their side on the social trade-offs, for instance. James mentioned, if you clear aliens, what does this mean for men or women or other groups? Myself and Tony and others, we're going to focus more on the biophysical. So if you rest an area, if you have crawling, or remove alien plants and use them for different things like charcoal or wood milling. What does this mean for carbon? What does this mean for biodiversity? Tony will speak a bit about water. So we're going to go measure these things depending on what we all decide on today and what uses of the landscape you would like to see. We're going to design our experiments around that, go and measure, and then model it so that we can, at the end of the project or during the project, present you with scenarios. So there's not a right and a wrong. There's scenarios that we can present and we can discuss. And so
Super, thank you, Heidi. So Heidi's work was invaluable in putting this whole bid together to begin with. We kind of very much built on the existing connection with the Umbenyani communities, but we've also established a wonderful connection with Nikki as well, for the upper catchment stuff as well. So it's nice to be able to have that dynamic. So the other partner sadly can't be here as well is from Stellenbosch University. So there's a guy from the animal science department there, Titus Mapai, and he's going to follow one of these threads we've established in the communities around alternative uses of wattle. And one of the things we've thought about, and he's done lots of work in other parts of South Africa with this, is how you can use the wattle as a feed for livestock. So rather than see it as a kind of waste product, how can you use that to benefit the community in kind of novel ways? So they're going to mix it with various ratios of, say, maize stover and feed it to the animals in a trial in one, possibly more than one of the villages. So that's due to commence probably early part of next year. So that's one of the strands we're going to focus on in terms of these novel practices. And the other partner, Dr. Tony Palmer there. Like to say a few words, Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm only with Rhodes for the last month, so I'm new in the business of being at Rhodes, but I was with the Agricultural Research Council for 30 years as a rangeland ecologist in division that deals with animal production and range management. And we obviously are interested in how much fodder is produced by the rangeland. So under the communal system, we have to develop techniques which are not so directly driven by how much biomass you can see, because the biomass is consumed continuously, whereas obviously in commercial systems, farmers tend to leave biomass available for the animals for the next season or for the dry season. So a lot of my work is centered on how we begin to understand what is the actual production that's happening in these communal grazing systems and what is available, forage available for animal production. But specifically for this project, we are installing some high-tech equipment in one of the villages near Maluti, and we're going to be measuring how much evapotranspiration or how much water is lost through evapotranspiration over a wattle grove, to be able to quantify the amount of water that we're losing by the amount that's being evaporated over the trees. So we've started installing the equipment. I'm just communicating with it at the moment, because we're going to be able to communicate with it through the Vodacom network or through the cell phone network, and we'll be able to see on a daily basis how much water is actually being evaporated by the stands of wattle that are basically growing all over this region.
That's right. I call it Tony's fancy bit of kit, but it's going to be finished in the next few days, and it's really important because it will give us the water measurements in terms of allow us to kind of think about those alternative scenarios. So if you remove that wattle, how much more water is in the system versus how much carbon is it locking up? So that's going to be really useful. So thank you, Tony. And just to emphasize as well, of course, this is all very collaborative with the people in the communities. We've established a good kind of rapport with 3 of the communities in Umbenyani, but also there's people here today from the upper catchment, the upper area, so everyone is very welcome, and it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Maybe ask me just to...
Yeah.
The machine is at
Okay, so the workshop itself. So this is really, the way we're thinking about this at the 6-month point into the project. We've got 18 months left, and we really want to think of this as the vital platform that helps to drive the rest of the project. So the decisions we take, as Heidi was referring to, the decisions we take today are really going to shape a lot of the next 18 months and tomorrow as well. So we're drawing on input from all of you kind of people in the communities and external actors, so academics, us and other people, NGOs, we've got NGOs here, governmental people, good to see you as well. So really nail down the kind of consensus about the types of trade-offs that are going to be required in these rangeland systems. So if we can come out at the end of this with a few old thoughts about how we can do things differently, envisage some alternatives, that would be fantastic. And then the next stage, after we've got these kind of tentative alternative land use scenarios, is to be able to model this. So that's going to be done by some of the people within South Africa, but also the guys back in the UK as well as linking that to some of the testing we've talked about with Tony's scintillometer, the ongoing intensive crawling and grazing stuff, and the grazing experiment as well. So these are little kind of novel interventions within the villages we're going to test as well. So it's a mixture of a bigger model and some little bits of empirical work to try and support that as well. Okay, so I thought it would be useful to try and distill all of that slightly difficult language down into 3 key objectives to drive the next 2 days. So we've got these 3 kind of outcomes that we're hoping to achieve, and this is basically, the whole of these 2 days is shaped around these 3 ideas, okay? So what I'm going to do afterwards is write those up on a piece of paper, pin them to the wall, and allow those to be kind of visualized by everyone throughout the whole period. So the first one is to think about, you all come from different backgrounds, different directions, you bring different ideas about rangelands. So what are the main goals and outcomes that different stakeholder groups, the community, NGOs, academics, governmental people are bringing around rangelands? And how can these, are they antagonistic? Can they be reconciled? How do we do that? And what are the trade-offs that are necessary to try and achieve that? And then finally, can we express those outcomes in terms of alternative land use scenarios and different management approaches? So an obvious one might be, a business as usual scenario, you leave things as it is. You can model that, it's fine. Or you could think about, do we want to get rid of most of the wattle and leave some of it? Or do we want to get rid of all of the wattle? So these are the types of things that we can work through in the workshop to arrive at those alternatives. And what are the implications of that for people? What are the implications of those different scenarios for the environment? So obviously there's trade-offs in all those different decisions. You remove most of the wattle, it's good for water, possibly bad for carbon because it's locking it up. People get more water in the system, you get more rangeland for increased livestock production. Can you balance that with all the objectives in the communities though? Because different people are bringing different things. Can you balance that with more thatch grass that people are asking for, etc., if you increase the grazing? So it's a very complicated kind of multi-layer approach to looking at this, but it's, let's see how we work through it over the 2 days. So I'm going to put those up on the wall afterwards, but that's all I've got for the kind of intro. But I'm sure that's engendered quite a few quizzical faces and questions. So I'm happy to take any general questions about the project now.
Thank you. It's given me a lot more clarity, and I'm feeling very privileged and grateful to be here because there's such a great overlap in a lot of the work that is already going on, which leads to my question: is there scope for feeding in existing work? We've had Dartmouth College here for the last 2 weeks, looking at a bunch of inputs, outcomes, theories of change, soil carbon. Rebecca and Heidi had some chats. How do we feed, is there scope for feeding what is going on into this, and from my selfish perspective, getting returns on what are we doing to feed back into livelihoods of that landscape. Because our whole philosophy is landscapes for livelihoods. It's a livelihood-led strategy on the landscape. It's not just, it's properly socio-ecological. And we're not deep scientists, we're kind of social, we mush things around, we're geographers in the true sense of the word. But I see huge benefits in the collaboration for this project.
Absolutely.
So my question is, what are the opportunities for further collaboration on behalf of other Umzimvubu partners? And it's great to see that Lima, CSA, the usual suspects are here, but there are others doing great stuff in the landscape who could also contribute to a draw.
Absolutely. I think it would make it much more powerful in terms of the data sets they could draw into the kind of the modelling work, for example, if they're already there. So I'd be very happy as long as some kind of protocol could be set up for, you know, what people would be willing to share and what they might expect out of it. So that, I can't see that as being a problem, but it just needs to be clearly set up, I think. But that, no, certainly it increases the strength, I think, of what we can do. Anybody got anything else? I want everyone to be happy with. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. No, I'm just thinking, how will this be, I'm asking it in a very simplistic way, the results of the study be communicated back to us so that it can inform policy making, it can also assist in terms of improvement of livelihoods at the ground level of the communities. I mean the results of the study as well as the recommendations.
Yeah.
Will you be able to come back and inform us, or we will get something like a document that will inform?
All of those things, I think, is the answer. So very much in any of these kinds of government-funded initiatives, a big part of this now for the funding is impact. So GCRF's focus is that it very much must not just be pie in the sky kind of scientific research. It has to have impact within communities, and you have to be able to demonstrate how you're going to do that. So part of what we've kind of committed ourselves to do is to have another workshop, is an obvious example, at the end of the project in 2021. So we will bring back to you everything that we found. Yeah, that's one thing. There will be a series of reports, which you say is the documents, but also, and I think this is quite nice, building on what CSA is doing, there's going to be a rangeland management toolkit, which has already been pioneered, but we're going to add to that with the kind of stories that people are developing and how they're using these practices. So using novel techniques like filming, very participatory, almost to develop a kind of A to Z of how you engage with some of these techniques. So to really kind of help with the practice within communities, if that makes sense. So it has to be stakeholder engagement with this. It has to demonstrate impact. So we are very committed to doing that, and that's part of our plan. I don't know if you want to add anything, Stephanie. There's probably other things we're going to do as well, but there's a lot we're committed to do as part of this. It is actually pretty ambitious. So it's within the communities as well as, and also the communities will be involved in some of the experiments as well. So I was talking about the feed experiment. That will involve real community cattle in there. And benefits will be tangible to them at the time, with the hope that that can be then spread to other people in the community as well. So the emphasis through all of this is on low-tech stuff that can be adopted by communities.
Maybe just to add to what Jane said, so this is linking to the video that I mentioned earlier. So we are trying, and we have some funds to produce a small video, a short video, and these are things that can be shared, via a link. It can be shared in your communities, it can be shared with other partners. We have somebody at our center who's doing editing, video editing, so we get help. So we will maybe aim to produce a short video that is, not too long, so that people can absorb it, and that's something we can share with you. And you can share, so what we do here, and if we have agreement that the video is fine as it is, which we will ask your consent or your opinion, before we share it, and then we could use that also as something. This is what we did here. This is how we try to link the academics and the NGOs and the communities. So we want to bridge these sectors, and we want to reach out to other people. And this could be something to apply for more funds. You know, you might know organizations, and it's nice to have a video. People sometimes want to see something in a nutshell. They don't want to read a long report. So we have to put it into a format that it is easy to use. So that's one of the outcomes we plan.
We think that's very important. Yeah. So it'll be something tangible. So it might be a nice vignette, a story about somebody putting into practice some of those rangeland management techniques or biochar. But it takes people through step by step so they can engage with how that's being done. So it can be a dispersion model as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just for interest's sake, what informed the choice of the study area?
Very much linking with Heidi. So when you put these things together and you're not here all the time, you need to partner with somebody that knows the place. So I mean, it's a microcosm, hopefully, of what's happening more broadly throughout South Africa. This is what we're hoping, and you can extrapolate more broadly from this to other parts of the Eastern Cape at least. But really, the choice of area. Maybe Heidi can talk more about how she chose it.
Yes. So the one thing is that there's not unlimited budget, and we had to focus on an area, and then we had to focus on an area where we knew that we had money from the Department of Environmental Affairs to carry out alien clearing activities, and where we already had a relationship around rested and unrested areas. So of course there are also other areas that we could have gone to, areas where ERS and Wiki are working, but we have, there are big distances involved, so it's a combination of logistics and budget and what we know we can do. So that was the reason.
But it's also very important, therefore, to have kind of local capacity built as well, to keep that engagement going, which is what we're trying to do through this project.
Right, and we wanted to make sure that we have an inclusive group here, so that whatever we learn in the Manyani area, we can apply and take to other areas. So it's just not possible to do everything everywhere.
But we would hope that this area is representative of the broader issues, constraints that kind of they'll pertain in communities throughout the Eastern Cape. It might be different, you go into drier areas, but certainly in terms of wattle and invasion, I think this is probably a key area to think about.
Thanks, James. I just want to build on what Tozamile is saying. I think there's, and from what I said earlier, there's a lot going on that can also contribute to the data collection.
Absolutely.
If we have the protocols.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of people on the ground. We've got non-reliance on the DA clearing, and we know there have been some national cash flow problems with other sources of funding that are a little bit more flexible. And I think as partners, certainly Lima and ERS and other local implementing partners, we're working closely with grazing associations and traditional authorities, would be very keen to test drive, not the right word, but to innovate.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of great innovative stuff. We're not always sure we're getting it right. We know we haven't ticked all the boxes. But if there are ways that we can contribute more data through using your protocols, we learn and you get more data.
Absolutely. And it's also almost like a proof of concept, because a lot of this will be modelling, but if there's stuff in the field that's happening which can actually be an empirical test of some of that, that's brilliant. I mean, some of the scintillometer stuff that tell you if you've got before and after removal of wattle, for example, great.
It's a huge value add to us.
Yeah,
So we keep.
Anything else? Want to make sure everyone's happy with what we're trying to do. Yeah, so as I said, I'll put those up. Obviously this will go off in a second, but I'll put those up on the wall at lunchtime so we're clear about the kind of guiding themes. Okay. Do you want to finish? Yeah, sure. Awesome.
And now we would like to get to know you a bit better. So we will continue with introductions. And I will put this here. So we have these questions for you. And we will do a round now, so that everybody can introduce themselves. So we would like to know who you are, your name, and your organization, or where you come from, the place where you live. And then we would like to know your expectations of this workshop. And we will write them down, and after the workshop, we will do a quick round and see if we fulfilled your expectations. So you might have some thoughts, you know, you might have no expectations, but you might think, okay, what can I get out of this? What will be the outcome? So we would like to make a brief statement on this now. And then also, what do you think you can contribute to this workshop? Because all of you will contribute in this or the other way, with experiences, with knowledges, with sharing insights. So this is the way we would like to do the introductory round now. Okay? So may we start here with you, sir? Your name, your organization, or where you come from, and then you can follow these questions. And can I just ask you, please make brief statements. We are a big group, so maybe 2 minutes, so that we get through everything. We will get to know each other more over these days, but for now, just an initial introduction so that we know who's here and yeah, what your expectations are. So, please.
I'm Clarence Mope from Department of Rural Development, Agrarian Reform, Veterinary Services. Luti office. Regarding number 2, since I was not sure about all of this, what's going on in this workshop. Maybe throughout the day I'll see what's happening.
So you're open to see what's going to happen. Okay.
Yes. So regarding the contribution, we'll see. Because since I'm normally working with animals, maybe there will be 1 or 2 something that I may put in. Anyway, that's all. I'm not sure.
I didn't get that. You work
with animals.
With animals, yeah.
Yes.
Some insights into.
No, like like I'm on the veterinary service whereby we talk on animal health and stuff.
Animal health.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, please. You may continue.
I'm Tangi Olo TB from Mariazell. I'm here on behalf of Mbuyise Andreas Tungwa. So regarding number 2, as I said, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Mbuyise Tungwa. So I have no expectations.
Okay.
Regarding number 3, yes, I come from a rural village, so he is the one who is gonna allow us to contribute, or maybe he is the one who is gonna contribute on that because he is a chairperson of the area.
He is
the chairperson of the area.
Is he here?
No, I'm here on behalf.
You are here on his behalf.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So everything is on his ends. He's the one who's controlling the city or the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Morning to everyone. My name is Tozamile Charlie. I am a traditional leader at Mafube administrative area. I'm from Hamavund Leclerc. My expectations here is to how we can change our grazing land, or how can we to gain more knowledge or more information about how can we prevent fire from our grazing land. I think it is the thing that I have right now. I don't have a contribution right now here because I'm not clear what's going on in this workshop. I think further when we are on it, I can have what can I contribute, because the main thing is changes in our area, because we are having a huge land here where we cannot use it. So I really think that when we are going back in our villages, we'll have more information to our people. So how can we start to change, as we are right now having a project there from Lima who are removing our water. So we don't know that. I heard the rumors that there is something that we can benefit on that wattle, as we can get a charcoal, something like that. But we don't know how can we start for doing that project. So that's all I have right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Major Satlwani, but for those people who are not familiar with the African names, just call me Ray. I'm here representing most of the community stakeholders, but my umbrella today is George Mushesh Traditional Council. So I'm here what I'm expecting here is that I gain information so that I go back and to re-establish our ways of living that were established even before the Europeans come to South Africa. That is severe protecting of the environment, and again the old ways of food production and food security that was used by our royal leaders, and again to protect those herbs that were used by the African herbalists to cure those sickness, and even again to protect even those small animals like snakes, because sometimes we as Africans we use some snakes to provide some medicines. So we need those